Imagine a train powered by a live jet engine that literally melted its own tracks. One underground railway was built in total secrecy beneath a major city without anyone knowing, and one experimental locomotive was so terrifyingly loud it caused structural damage to the buildings it passed. These are the machines that pushed engineering way past the edge of sanity. Here is every illegal and banned train you need to know about. The M497 Black Beetle. In the late 1960s, an engineer strapped two actual jet engines from a bomber plane onto the roof of a standard commuter train. The idea was simple: make trains go faster than airplanes. It worked, and the machine blasted down the tracks at over 180 miles per hour. But there was a massive problem. The jet blast was so incredibly hot that it began to cook the gravel beneath the tracks and melt the wooden railroad ties. It was essentially a roaring jet fighter pinned to the ground, kicking up a hurricane of dust and debris that blinded anyone standing near the platform. Railroad executives realized that running a literal blowtorch through civilian towns was a recipe for disaster, and the project was quickly scrapped. The Schienenzeppelin. Back in 1929, a German inventor decided that regular wheels weren't good enough. Instead, he built a massive, lightweight train shaped like a silver bullet and slapped a giant four-bladed wooden airplane propeller on the very back. It looked sleek, futuristic, and terrifying. It broke land speed records by flying down the rails at over 140 miles per hour. But the design was fundamentally flawed. The spinning wooden blade at the back was completely exposed. If a passenger stood too close to the edge of the platform, the train would literally shred them. It also couldn't pull any extra train cars because the propeller couldn't generate enough low-speed pushing power, meaning it was completely useless for actual transport. The Bennie Railplane. Imagine a bus suspended from an overhead track, powered entirely by massive airplane propellers at the front and back. Built in Scotland during the 1930s, this was supposed to revolutionize city travel by taking commuters off the crowded ground. It was fast, smooth, and looked like something out of a science fiction comic book. However, the engineering was a nightmare. The propellers made an absolute mockery of peace and quiet, creating a deafening roar that shook local neighborhoods. More importantly, the system required an entirely new, incredibly expensive elevated track network to be built over existing lines. When the inventor ran out of money, the prototype was left to rust by the side of the tracks for decades. The Bertin Aerotrain. During the 1960s, France decided to completely abandon traditional train tracks. Instead, they built a massive concrete monorail track shaped like an upside-down letter T. The train itself didn't have wheels. It floated on a cushion of air just like a hovercraft and was pushed forward by a massive aircraft engine. It was blindingly fast, hitting speeds of nearly 300 miles per hour, but the project was ultimately doomed. The noise from the massive jet engine was so deafening that people living miles away from the tracks complained constantly. On top of that, the concrete tracks were incredibly expensive to build and couldn't easily connect to existing city train stations, causing the government to kill the project overnight. The Brennan Gyro Monorail. At the turn of the 20th century, an inventor proved you could run a full-size train on just one single rail, like a bicycle. To keep the massive machine from tipping over, he installed two giant, heavy-spinning tops called gyroscopes inside the train. It worked perfectly. Even when passengers ran to one side, the train magically balanced itself. But the fatal flaw was pure terror. If the spinning gyroscopes ever lost power or broke down, the entire train would instantly lose its balance and flop over onto its side like a dead fish. No railway company was willing to risk the lives of hundreds of passengers on the mechanical survival of a spinning top, and the idea was banned from public use. The jet train of the Soviet Union. Not to be outdone by the West, Soviet engineers in the 1970s took a rusted-out commuter coach and bolted two massive jet engines right above the driver's cabin. It looked like a mechanical demon. While it successfully reached high speeds, it was an absolute environmental nightmare. The engines consumed an astronomical amount of expensive aviation fuel just to move a single train car. Worse, the toxic exhaust and intense heat ruined the overhead power lines and cracked the rails. It was far too expensive, far too loud, and far too dangerous to ever carry action. The Mail Rail of London. Deep beneath the bustling streets of London, a miniature, completely driverless electric railway operated in total darkness for decades. It wasn't built for people, it was built entirely to move millions of letters and packages across the city away from traffic. It was highly efficient, but it was operated like a ghost in the machine. Because the tunnels were incredibly tight, dark, and filled with high-voltage tracks, it was a death trap for any unauthorized human who dared to step inside. When modern sorting technology improved and surface transport changed, the secret subterranean postal train was finally shut down. The Holman horror. In the late 1800s, a man created a locomotive that looked like a normal steam engine sitting on top of a massive pile of extra spinning wheels. He claimed this bizarre design multiplied the train's speed while using less coal. In reality, it did absolutely nothing. The extra wheels just spun aimlessly in place, creating a terrifying amount of friction, sparks, and noise. It was a massive engineering scam designed to trick wealthy investors out of their money. Once people realized the train was a rolling fire hazard that offered zero actual performance benefits, the company collapsed in shame. The atmospheric railway. In the 1840s, legendary engineer Isambard Kingdom Brunel tried to build a train with no engine at all. Instead, a giant pipe was laid between the tracks, and massive pumping stations used vacuum power to literally suck the train down the line. It was fast, quiet, and clean, but it had a gross and bizarre fatal flaw. The long pipe required a leather flap to seal the vacuum, and to keep the leather soft, it was coated in animal fat. This attracted thousands of hungry rats who ate the leather seals, destroyed the vacuum pressure, and completely paralyzed the entire transit system. The Tecumseh Prall steam car. This machine tried to redefine how steam power worked by using high-pressure steam jets blasted directly backward to propel the vehicle, almost like a primitive rocket. The prototype was built to be incredibly fast, but the control systems of the era were simply not ready for that kind of volatile power. During a test run, the extreme pressure caused the entire mechanism to violently explode, destroying the prototype and proving that unguided rocket-style steam propulsion on a fixed track was a recipe for disaster.